Hi, welcome back to Oddly Noted. Today we're going to be working on Vivaldi's Concerto in A minor, first movement. If you're using a Suzuki book, this is actually one of the first books that Suzuki uses concertos. Now concertos are usually solos with an orchestra background. You'll notice a couple things in your music. One is the little word says tutti. There will also sometimes it says solo. When it says tutti, this means that the orchestra is probably playing your part, or part of the orchestra is playing your part. So it's going to be a group. Now, in terms of solo, when you're playing solo, chances are there's just a small background behind you in terms of music, and you are the star of the show. So make sure that the dynamics that you play in the solos are as if you're the only one playing. So it's going to be a little bit louder and a little bit more present. For this piece, we're going to be going over 3 practice spots. And for these practice spots, you'll need to practice them about 10 times a day for several days, weeks, months if you need to. And then once you get to the point where the practice spots are memorized, then we'll start working on the rest of the piece. In order to find these practice spots, you'll need to number your measures in your piece. And make sure that with this piece in particular, you don't number the pickup note as a separate measure. It always starts with the first complete measure. Our first practice spot is going to be measure 60 through about 68, 69. So we're going to be looking for the patterns in this particular practice spot, which are, and you'll notice it changes eventually to, and then over here. So you can go ahead and use color, so like a colored pencil in your music, to highlight how many times of each you're going to be doing and when you need to switch to a new one. So let's go ahead and play it through slowly so you can notice these patterns. The next thing we can highlight in this practice spot are the melodic notes. They're usually the first note of each group of 4, but there's also a couple little tidbits where there's 4 in a row. So let's go ahead and play just the downbeats and those 4 in a row, just so we can hear the melodic line that goes throughout. Let's go ahead and play it through one more time, really slow, just so we can hear the whole composite. The next practice spot that we're going to work on is measure 24 through measure 27. For the reach in measure 26, you're just reaching a little bit further than you would for your fourth finger. So really reach up. If it's really hard for you, think about reaching back with your first finger so it's not so hard on your shorter fourth finger. And then we have measure 27, which leads to measure 28 with that giant shift. I recommend playing that shift separately, and there's actually an exercise in this shifting video that I did earlier, which should be linked in the description below, so check that out. And I would go ahead and practice that shift several times until you can get it twice in a row without any problems. Just like the previous practice spot, you'll need to distinguish the melodic notes from the repetitive pattern. Let's go ahead and play just the melodic notes to start with. Good job! Now let's put it all together and do it rather slowly. We're also going to be doing the downbeat of 28. While you're working on that big shift with the exercise that I taught you in the previous video, make sure that you're shifting with your one mainly. And you're shifting up to third position, which is an A on the E string. Make sure that you're not jumping. A lot of people sort of risk it all and jump and often miss. The next practice spot that we'll be going over is going to be from measure 71 through measure 74, 5-ish. Let's go ahead and play it rather slow. So you'll need to go ahead and keep playing that slowly until you can practice it 10 times a day until it's memorized. You can also take any of these particular practice spots and use the metronome. Make sure that if you get to the point where you're missing notes, that you crank back the metronome a couple beats so you can actually play everything at that tempo. There are also a number of spots in this piece that go up into third position. If you're not comfortable with third position, make sure that you highlight these spots as well. One last little melodic tidbit that I'd like to give you is on these repeated notes at the very beginning and throughout the piece, they can get rather boring if you play them with the exact same amount of bow every time. This is what it would sound like if I played it with the exact same amount of bow. It's not very melodic, is it? So, in order to vary it, go ahead and use smaller, bigger, bigger, and biggest on those 4 notes. You need to make sure that when you have repeated notes like this, that each note has a different amount of bow, a different amount of weight, a different amount of speed, or it becomes boring. It's a really easy fix, and it makes you sound fantastic when you do it. Alright, let's go ahead and play through the whole piece now.